I don't know. Some things just happen the way they happen. And such is life, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, we're going to be doing a little bit of a hiatus on the show tonight. Everybody has been either busy or otherwise occupied with the upcoming holiday coming up this weekend. A couple of people are running late. I sent out the invites and all the rest of that. And today happens to be my birthday. So with that being said, we really don't have a whole hell of a lot to talk about. And I just sat down to eat some lovely pizza from our good friends over at Johnny Tomatoes in Indian Trail, North Carolina. No, I didn't get paid for that advertisement, but I just figured I'd share it with you because they make some really good stuff over there. This, I believe, is their pesto Sicilian pie. Really, really good. Just warmed it up in the oven because I just got home from work and, oh wait, look, we have a guest with us this evening. It's our good friend Jan Range. Jan, how's it going, sweetheart?
It's going pretty good. First off, I want to say happy birthday, big guy.
Thank you. It's greatly appreciated. I am 39 years old today for the 15th time.
Yup.
Or something like that.
It's been a while since I've been on. So.
Is that a Rhea Ripley shirt you're wearing?
Yes, it is.
I had no idea that you were a fan of professional wrestling.
Oh, yes, I am. I've been for years and years. In fact, I've been to some live events.
Oh, well, next time we're together, I will show you some of the photographs I have from the various WrestleManias I attended.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's something I haven't been to yet. And, well, I haven't been to any of the major events, but except one. Went to a Royal Rumble in '94 with my kid in Fresno.
Somewhere I will have to dig up a photograph of George the Animal Steel body slamming me through a table in a restaurant in Brooklyn, New York. That was fun. We didn't bring him up on assault charges, even though I was only 15 at the time. But
yeah. No, I want to thank y'all for everything you've said to me behind the scenes. It hasn't been an easy couple of months. I decided to go ahead and come on tonight because I needed a little bit of a break. My dad was interned today. My sister sent me all the videos of the honor guard and everything, and so a couple hours ago I just been bawling my eyes out yet again because now it's a finality. It's not just that he's gone, but I don't know, it's hard, as you know.
It is. My dad's 10-year anniversary of his passing came and went, and unlike previous years, I didn't address it this time around. I figured 10 years I was just going to let it go, but it hung over me like a cloud. That 10-year anniversary is like a solemnness to it that in retrospect, I'm glad I didn't pay homage to it because I didn't want to bring anybody down. It's 10 years, but in my heart, it's like, okay, it's a significant anniversary. And then today, we've always had a tradition in my family that at midnight on our birthdays, my mom would always pick up the phone and call that kid. And with the exception of 1 year that my mom was sick and she slept through my birthday at that midnight, where I was told in advance, I'm probably going to be sleeping at midnight, so I'm not going to call you tonight. So I let it go. But today was the second midnight that I didn't get that phone call.
Oh no! I totally get it because our tradition isn't at midnight, but at some time during the day, you're going to get a call from, well, at this point in time, it was either my dad and my sister. You pick up the phone and they sing you happy birthday. That's been our family tradition, and I'm not going to get that song this year from him.
Well, I just got it from my sister. She called me a couple of minutes. I didn't realize how late it was getting. I'm not supposed to be scheduled at my job to work on Wednesdays past sevens because I have to come back here and prep for the show. But on my way home today, I didn't have the opportunity to really pay too much attention to the time, and came in. I did a bunch of stuff, and Lori put my pizza on the table at 7:55, and I'm like, oh, I don't really have time to get the show going, and Marshall stuck up on a mountaintop someplace. We don't know if and when we're going to see him anytime soon. Dal just texted us. He said that he's having car trouble. He's stuck at the mechanic.
Yeah.
Vass has been popping in and out for the last 5 minutes. There he is just now, Mr. Vasquez. Unlike Vasquez, I am not going to sit at the computer for 15 hours on my birthday and do a liver crushing, bladder smashing, 12-hour broadcast. No, on my birthday, I'm actually gonna, I don't know, call it early so I can eat my food and be done because I am exhausted. And I gave myself a panic attack in the middle of the night last night. I had a bill due that's on the 15th of the month. And I was like sleeping last night. I said, oh my God, the 15th. And I'm checking my bank account. I'm like, well, it hasn't posted yet. And oh God, I'm short $40 to pay that bill. I got to transfer money. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I grabbed a bunch of money out of the house. I ran to the bank at 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, I ran over to the ATM on the other side of town so I could deposit a couple of $100, cover the bills. I forgot to do it earlier in the day. The bill's due May 15th. And I'm a month away from when the bill's actually due. And I was just drove myself nuts. And by the time I got back in the house last night, I was too wound up to go to sleep again. So by the time I went back into the bed and closed my eyes, Charlie was poking me in the face. He had to go out, and Jake had to go out, and JC had to go out. And before you know it, it's 5:30. I'm sitting at the kitchen table having a cup of coffee, going, this is my day now. I got 2 hours sleep. I'm good to go. Bass, how are you doing over there?
Well, I think most people know that about a week or so ago, had my computer completely crash, and so we had to rebuild everything, reset, and it took several days. I got the computer back on like Friday, spent several days. I lost about 200 to 400 gigs of data, which may sound a lot to most people. I have 10 terabytes of data on my computer. So 400 gigs, not something I'm losing my mind over. But that's put me behind on almost everything. But I have been following what's been going on in the news of late, and some of the big issues that are going on. In fact, today in the Bronx Conservative Party is having their monthly meeting in Allerton Avenue. I know that there is a new candidate who is starting their campaign. They're on the ballot, a Republican in Queens, and that's going on tonight as well. There's a lot happening. People still don't even know about and this is something that's happening around the country, that various cities are just dropping in these lithium-ion battery plants without telling anyone in residential areas, and people are not aware of this. I covered this. I was at the event Saturday, and no one in the news. There was 2 articles in the news media. BronxNet News. There was the Daily Post, and me are the only ones. And I'm the only one with actual video. The other 2 didn't mention that there were 6 candidates, including Curtis Lewa. Didn't mention it. Didn't mention that these battery plants have had fires, 40 fires across the country,
You
which
guys
lead
are
to
freezing.
8 miles of toxic plumes. We're talking about hydrochloric acid, gas, and
I'm the only one
cancerous
not
gas.
frozen. What's
This is a block
going
away
on?
from a high school.
That's on your computer, Jan. You're fine on ours.
Yeah. So that's one thing in the news. There's today, and I think you guys heard me mention it before, Elise Stefanik mentioned that she's going to be running for governor, which I knew. I did hint at that. I did know that. But I also know how she wins. And that's the thing that I don't think anyone's talked about yet. I know exactly the thing that wins the race for her. And I know the issue. I'll tell everyone on your show first, because no one else has talked about this. There's a problem with Cody Balmer, guy who's trying to burn down the governor of Pennsylvania. There's that. So there's a lot of things. But before I get to any of those, it's your birthday, Frank. And you're younger than me, so I hope you're supposed to have some kind of fun party. I mean, you're the younger one, supposed to go out and drink with friends and all that.
I bought a gun for my birthday.
That's not a bad thing.
No, that's my my thing for the day. Is I saw something that I've been looking for quite some time, and when it showed up, I said, I'm going to have that. And so that's what I went and did. Yeah, let me see if I can't show you what I got here.
Sure.
There you go. That's a Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum. That's a model 27-9. Been around for a long time. And that's what I picked up today. That was my birthday present to myself. The reason why I got this one, my father, when he was on the NYPD, carried this model firearm. Although with a 5-inch barrel, this has got a 6.5. Well, he was involved in a scuffle, and they had to inspect this firearm at one point. And when upon closer inspection of this firearm, they said, this isn't your police issue firearm. This is a 357 Magnum. At the time, the police were only allowed to carry 38s. So in keeping with the good graces of the NYPD, my father reluctantly got rid of that gun and just started carrying his Colt 38 after that. Well, my father always regretted selling that gun. That was one of the guns that my dad says that's what the one that got away. So I had the opportunity when I saw it, and I don't see them very often. I said, you know what, Dad? This on my birthday, this one's for you. So I bought him his old gun from myself on my birthday. So that's how it went. And that's my party, and I'm sticking to it.
No, hey, if it's making you happy, it's your birthday, that's good. Me, I spent, it was actually 12 and a half hours raising money for the Jericho Project, which we did a great job. Raised a couple $100. Even after YouTube taking their cut, we raised a couple $100 for the Jericho Project, which deals with veterans and homelessness in New York. We did a fantastic job with that. And I had a great time, but that's how I spend it. Very few people do that on their birthday, do a 12 and a half hour live stream. I know Jan said that she's having an issue with the computer. She's going to be back with us in just a moment. And of course, I understand the difficulty she's going through right now. So it's good that she's here with us, take her mind off things, have a different point of view. But did you hear about Elise Stefanik? Did you hear what the news is going on there?
I haven't heard anything about her. The only thing that I had heard in politics this week is all of these idiots that are flying down to El Salvador to try and free the domestic terrorists and drug leaders and kingpins of MS-13 and bring them back to America, because that's the priority among the Democrat Party.
Well, there's one. They're there for one guy who may or may not be a member of MS-13. We thought he was a member of a Venezuelan gang, which is why he got picked up. He may also be a member of MS-13, and he seems, I believe he is an American citizen, but also a member of MS-13, which is why he got caught up in the sweep. But, and that's not clear and defined. The mainstream news media isn't talking about this. They're talking about, he's an American, he got deported. Why did he get deported? Well, because he's a member of a gang. And when they did the sweep of all the gang members, he got caught up in that net, which is why he was deported. At least this is the story that we've heard so far from the media. And that's why he's not being released, because he's in Venezuela as a part of that gang. But that could be an issue. There's still not enough clarity, and the news media isn't trying to clarify it. They're just going with Orange Man bad, he overreached, there's no other answer to this. So they've got a kernel of salt, and they're trying to turn it into a pound or a mountain of manure. There's more to that story. But the news about Lee Stefanik was coming out today. Now, you may be aware, and I don't know, Jan, maybe you heard about this too. Elise Stefanik, who is a member of the House, the 21st District, which is a very Republican district, always has been. And I met Elise back in 2013 when I was running for Congress. We both met in Herkimer. We were going out to the local people talking about why they should vote for us. That's when I first met her. She probably doesn't remember me. But she's been elected. She's been a prominent voice. She's done a great job. In fact, she was nominated, she was being nominated to go into the UN as an ambassador for the United States. Huge upgrade. But the UN can't handle her. It seems that a woman who's a politician and is conservative is too much for the sensibilities, the gentle folk of the EU and NATO. They can't handle a woman who would actually be aggressive and not have a progressive mindset. So she lost the job. So Trump owes her a favor because she left without any complaint. This is the favor, that she runs for governor. She's going to run for governor. And when she runs for governor, she's going to get Trump to support her. He's going to come in. He's going to endorse her. He's going to come in and actually stump for her in New York. I see that coming. This is not confirmed. This is not from insiders. This is my conclusion based on some conversations I've had. None of them with Elise or her campaign, but just individuals I know in the region. Here's the thing that wins the race, though. Now, that sounds compelling as is, but she's going to fall short. She's going to get about 45%, which is about what we saw Lee Zeldin get. Republicans are very excited. Democrats are very demoralized. 2026 looks like we're going to hold about even in terms of midterms, which is a huge reversal. Usually, the party that won in the presidency loses the midterm. We're looking at this moment, Republicans maintain control. But Elise, she's going to run for governor. And the thing that puts her over the edge, MAHA. Have you guys heard about that?
Yeah, make America healthy again.
That's right. And Trump, when President Trump took in RFK, he took in Tulsi Gabbard, he took in the third-party candidates, the independents in America who are not in either of the parties, but they make up the difference. They are the reason somebody wins. They're the votes in the middle that will win or lose an election for you. And These are critical votes, especially in swing state, in non-swing states, in New York State, which is normally deep blue. That's why we have a single party ring. This is what wins it for her. If she is smart, and she is, I've met her, she's a very smart woman, she's going to need more than Trump's endorsement. If she does what he did in terms of bringing in an RFK, if she gets one of the major leaders of the third party who are known for and speak about MAHA, making America healthy again, that is a universal, that crosses party lines. That is a winning strategy to try and duplicate what we see Trump has done with RFK being in the HHS and trying to make America healthy. And if you have a governor who's actually trying to do that, because Hochul isn't, she doesn't care if Americans are healthy. Andrew Cuomo won't do it. He doesn't care. All the other names you hear for governor on the Democratic side, not one of them care if you're healthy or not. They care about green energy, and they want to jack up your electricity bill. They want to take away your guns, and they want to track, if you have ammo, they want to track that. They want to punish you, and they want to take away your money, but not one of them care about you being healthy. If I am right, you're going to see Elise Stefanik not just run for governor, not just get the endorsement of Donald Trump and the entire White House, but you are going to see her run with Make America Healthy Again in New York, and she will win the governor's race because of that by 3 to 5 points. What do you think?
I don't know how much of an issue health is in New York State.
It's big.
Because, well, the thing I'm saying is, like, when people think about health, they think about the FDA. You know, they think about the Food and Drug Administration. They think about the things that are more consumable at the national level. There are very few times when the states have restrictions on drugs, over-the-counter prescription, or anything else like that. Very few times when the state has restrictions on anything else that has to do with health, like chemicals or anything else. Everything people think about when it comes to regulating health is done at a federal level, with the states backing them up with their own state office of, which basically can either enhance a regulation or make it more strict, but it can't undo what the federal government does. The feds set a bar. The state has to meet or exceed it. Now, I don't know what she can promise New Yorkers to make New York healthy. Well, I mean, the only thing I'm looking at is regulation.
Well,
He's not going to be able to, not going to be able to turn around and say, we're going to improve the food you eat, unless they want to start banning or labeling stuff in the state like what California does, where every single product you buy is listed as a carcinogen. It's more regulation, it's more cost, it's more everything. So I don't know if people in New York actually give a damn about the Make America Healthy movement or not. I think what they care about is how much money they got in their pocket at the end of the paycheck.
Well, yes, everyone cares about the paycheck, but there is a huge segment of not just New York State, but each state across the country. There is a significant portion, I'd say about 15% of the population, where that is in their top 5 issues. And that number is growing. And that, so not just because, what foods are carcinogen, have carcinogens in them, but also what's organic, what's the cost, regulations on those foods, allowing them to come into the state, taxes on them, whether that's something that's being incentivized by the state or not, whether it's allowed to export into America, into New York or not. These are all factors. That also goes into the vaccines and what is in the vaccines that people are getting. It has to deal with the types of food, how many chemicals are in food products that you're eating every day. Yeah, it's actually a huge subject. And a lot of people really do. And the people who do care, that 15%, they are hyper attentive to that. But Jen, tell me, what do you think about my thought that if, again, I think that not only does Elise Stefanik run, which I knew was part of her deal in stepping down from the UN, but that she's going to try and target Maha and the third party.
Don't know that much about New York, so I can't really give an opinion on how she wins, if she wins. I don't. I can say as far as the Maha movement, it is growing. People are starting to realize because of all the crap that's been put in our food. But at the same time, you've got so many people. I mean, your typical progressive leftists and following what the media tells them and everything. That making America healthy isn't a good thing. They're pissed off that states are, again, I understand this doesn't have to do with running for governor, but it does, because when you've got all these people out there upset that they want to ban soda and candy from food stamps, it's like, why are you pissed off? It's not about the junk food. It's not about all the crap that's in it. It's about making us healthy. Mm-hmm. Stop going to the doctor for everything.
Well, if you're healthy, you don't have to go to the doctor, which means you get to save money on those doctor bills, all those medications, all the pills they give you. And that's kind of the response. It's also against big pharma, which is another reason why a lot of people in third parties and the left also jump in on this, which is why I think it's a winning strategy. And it's good for the public because it helps to lower your annual costs in each family. Because you spend less on a doctor, you spend less on medications. You're healthier, which is good for productivity, businesses like that. You're out of work less because you're healthier. I think it's something that's gained popularity because most people recognize these things. And most people don't want as many chemicals, possibly. And I see RFK is working on trying to see, is there a connection between ADHD, ADD, autism? Is that a consequence of having all these chemicals in our foods as opposed to other nations that have far less chemicals and have far less instances of these things? So I think it is a winning strategy.
Well, and I think something to point out too with all that is we have companies here in the United States that make food to ship overseas. Mm-hmm. If they're making the food to ship overseas, but overseas doesn't allow all this crap in it, then why is it so hard to sell that here in America? It's because the FDA and government has allowed them to put all this crap in our food. Businesses aren't going to shut down, like Kellogg's, let's just say. Kellogg's isn't going to shut down because we have now banned red dye, blue dye, all the dyes in our food. They already make it to send it overseas.
True. This isn't
and I think that's
idea.
Something that people are thinking about.
Yeah, it's not definitely not a new idea, but they're acting as if it's, shocking. But I think given that people are generally very positive about the first 100 days of the Trump administration, given that we have seen progress on the very things that we voted for. I mean, the first 100 days of Trump have been the things that he promised he would do. He was elected and he's been doing them. Whether everyone agrees with every aspect, or the way he's doing it, he's doing what he promised. So I think this is more of that. This is an extension of that. I think I think, Frank, you will be surprised how many people care about a healthy America. It is a top 10 topic across the country. And in many of the bluer states, it's a top 5 issue. I think and I think.
Oh yeah, but I just don't see a lot of your Whole Food shopping, Birkenstock wearing hippy dippies, running over and voting for the person who is campaigning with Trump. I don't.
They have no choice. There is no one else because Democrats don't care.
Well, there is a choice. They sit home, and the people who sit home elect Democrats.
If they sit home, it still helps at least. This is a strategy that wins. The left, those on the left, she's going to pick up independents that wouldn't normally be interested. She's going to pick up people in third parties that normally sit out. She's going to pick up people on the left that this is one of their priorities. And for others who say, I can't do something that Trump is doing, I can't do something that helps Republicans, they sit out the race. That turns the proportion of Republicans voting versus Democrats in favor of Republicans. It's a win-win strategy. Whether they show up or not, it's not that Republicans are going to say, oh my God, we're trying to make America healthy, just like RFK. Oh, well, I can't vote for that. Sure, they did. They already did that. We're not losing Republicans. Democrats are losing. And Democrats, if you notice, they won't talk about making America healthy because you would think it would be an issue they would want to talk about. It's right in line with their ideology, but they won't talk about it because it's Trump's idea. So they can't. So she wins yet again because Democrats aren't going to bring it up. They're trying to avoid the subject as much as possible, which means Democrats who care about this, they only have one place to go, and that'll be Elise Stefanik. If she's smart, if she's taking advice of individuals like myself, and I think she is, I think this is part of her plan, and I think you will hear about it by the end of the year. This is just my supposition on it, so people can get an idea of where our politics are going, because I think that's where the nation's going. And you will see that replicated in New Jersey and other states across the nation. You're going to see governors doing the same thing. They're going to reach out to third parties. They're going to get some of the top individuals in third parties talking about healthcare, in particular, making America healthy. They're going to bring them into their campaigns. They will push that issue, and you will see that they're going to win a lot more races.
Well, we'll see what happens with that, but right now I'm going to change speeds a little bit.
Sure.
To our favorite prosecutor at large, Letitia James, who, as it seems, prosecuted Donald Trump on a bogus baloney charge about overinflating the value of the property at Mar-a-Lago so that he could get a loan on said property. And apparently that's what was one of the things that they convicted him on, his 89 million convictions that he got. But as it turns out, Letitia there was doing this pretty much the same thing. Mm-hmm. And quite very probably, looking at the evidence right now, committed fraud. An actual fraud. Mm-hmm. Actual fraud. The same charges, the charges they wanted to try Trump on, but couldn't figure out how to do it, so they had to come up with some convoluted way of trying to turn out-of-date misdemeanors into current felonies. Mm-hmm. What they wanted to get Trump on is what she is being accused of. They don't have to come up with charges. They have the evidence. They already have the proof. So, from what I understand, it's been kicked up the chain of command to the Department of Justice, and I guess we'll see if New York's new attorney, who's the federal prosecutor for New York now?
Letitia James. She's the AG.
No, she's the attorney general. But at federal level,
Oh, her counterpart. I forget the name. Honestly, I forget the name.
yeah, I mean, there's so many of them right now. But the one Trump's previous lawyer, the young lady.
Okay.
Bondi?
Yeah, she. What's that?
Bondi?
No. That's the attorney general.
I don't remember.
Well, I know I saw a report today on that.
Alina
I saw a
Habba.
report today on that. Yeah, I saw a report today on that, and they said that in her filings, her dad signed papers posing or stating that he was her husband. So that's falsifying information too.
Well, it's even worse. It's not just that she falsified documents. There's a couple of things. One, she had her Virginia residence as her primary residence. And at the same time, she also was the AG of New York, which is an absolute crime right there. So she's falsifying where she lives, which if she's a permanent resident, as she claimed in the documents of Virginia, then she can't be New York AG. She would have to resign. She had to give up the position. So she's falsified her residence, which then affects her position in elected office. And as a lawyer, she's aware of the law and she's aware of the criminality of what she did. So she can't say, oh, I didn't know what was in the document. I didn't know what I was signing. That's both your profession and your elected office to know those things. So she can't say that. In addition to that, then yes, there's the additional falsifications inside the documents, like with her dad, that now you're adding fraud on top of everything else that's there. So not only are we seeing the charges that were put against President Trump, but in addition, more charges. And somebody probably covered this up. So that means when they're doing the investigation, she could be hit with conspiracy, because if anyone on her campaign knew about her residence in Virginia and that she was claiming she was a resident there, any of them, including the accountant, well, they're part of that conspiracy to not notify the public, to allow that crime to take place. They are also liable, which means there could be several people in New York's elected officials that may be dragged into this that could also have criminal charges against them. And I think this is the funniest thing in the world, because it's another case of Democrats blame others for what they do. Letitia James did this. She blamed Trump for it, but she actually did it. The best thing they got on Trump is he signed a form once, and they just replicated it and said, well, that applies 34 times. He only signed it once, and he's not an accountant. He wasn't he signed a document, but when most people did their taxes yesterday, they signed off on whatever the accountant said. The accountant did all the math and did all the paperwork and said, here's your bill. You either owe money or you got money back. And people sign it. Why? Because they don't know anything about accounting. They don't know accounting law. And Trump, billionaire or not, he doesn't know. He's not an accountant. He's not a lawyer. He's not expected to know accounting law. They said, sign this. He did. And then they said, well, that applies 34 times. Now they're trying to say, well, in Letitia James's case, it doesn't really apply. Come on. Let's be serious. It's funny how this works out. It's karma. What do you think, What do you think, Frank?
Well, it's always the same thing. I mean, Nancy Pelosi pretty much spelled out the entire Democrat strategy as far as, how they do things and then figure out how to pin it on Republicans. Isolate and transfer and do all the rest of that stuff. It's no surprise. It's no surprise that this one got caught up in it because she already had the game plan of what to look for because she did it herself. Nobody's going to show you how to do something better than somebody who's an expert at doing it.
True. That is true. It's ridiculous at this point. But this could take, I think a lot of people may be surprised how this is going to involve many more people, because every single person who worked in her campaign that had access to any of the financials, everyone who is aware of her legal practice, who's aware of her selling that house in Virginia, they all could be and probably will be responsible for notifying the public of this crime. And therefore, by not making it public, by not informing the public at the time or afterwards, they are conspirators in that crime. They can be charged as well. I think that's very much what you could see coming out of this case. So there's a web of people who could be wrapped up in this, not just Letitia James, but a lot of others as well.
Well, right now I'm still waiting for somebody to get arrested. Somebody. Anybody to get arrested, because I'm still waiting on, there's this little island over there someplace where a lot of bad shit happened to a lot of innocent kids, and we were promised we were going to get information on that, and we haven't. There's some files on some major assassinations of key political figures in the United States that we were told we were going to get some information on that too, and we haven't. And we keep getting stonewalled by the administration that told us that they were going to let all this information out. So, is this, with Letitia James, something that's just meant to appease those of us who have been demanding that it all get burnt to the ground? And say, here's, okay, we're not going to give you the bonfire that we promised you, but here's a little garbage can that you can watch burn. We'll throw this one little thing together, and you can watch that and feel satisfied. Because the whole we can't let you know who the kitty diddlers were because of national security is a little bit bullshit to me.
Yeah, well, the difference here is you're looking at this is also personal for Trump, and the left is trying to make it seem like, well, this isn't political, this isn't politics, this is personal, this is just Trump, he's attacking people. It's a crime. It is a crime, whether it's Trump or not, whether or not Trump is doing this because of whatever reason. It is in and of itself, at the end of the day, it's a crime, full stop. And whether Trump is emphasizing it because of his personal feelings does not change the underlying crime, but the left is trying to do that to deflect it.
Right, it's fine, but look, I don't give a shit about the optics. I don't care about the optics as to whether or not she's going to be charged with this now, next year, next week, or anything else like that. I don't care about the optics because people are going to say it's political gamesmanship. It's paying back for what she did to him, and then the next thing they're going to go after the judge with the civil suits and all that stuff. I don't care about how it looks. I care about the law being applied equally, and I care about the administration following its promises that it made to the American people. And I'm tired of hearing that the reason we don't know what the names of the rapists who were at Epstein Island was because of national security. How is it possibly national security unless very important governmental figures were at the island and they know that if they were to lock them up, that these people have national security information and national security secrets, so they'd be threatening to let stuff out. They're going to threaten to Edward Snowden everything if they get locked up. Because remember what Hillary Clinton said, If I go down, half of Washington, D.C. goes down with me. So is that why? Are the people that were on the island too powerful to arrest? Because they know too much? They know where too many of the bodies are buried? And that's why we can't get any information?
Well, people may have noticed we're joined right now by Dalen P.
Dalen.
Okay. You know Dalen, so.
Dalen is a friend of mine. He is a Second Amendment aficionado and practitioner, and he is going to be joining us when we go down and do the broadcast from the NRA annual meeting in 2 weeks. He's going to be one of our co-hosts at the show. He's coming down to share his expert wisdom and knowledge in all things firearms and Second Amendment law. And he is a hell of a good guy. He's got an epic beard. And I kind of like hanging out with him. He's fun. So, Dalen, up above, that's Michael Vasquez. We call him Vas. And Vas, that's Dalen. Everybody say hello to Dalen.
Hey.
Hi, Dalen.
How's it going?
You want to turn your volume up?
Volume up. Got it.
I got it.
Try it now.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Kind of.
Try it now, Dalen.
All right. I not much. First time doing this. Tried to set up it the best I could, but nice to meet you. Happy birthday, Frank. Nice to meet you, Michael.
Thank you, sir. So, Dalen, I don't know if you follow the Epstein Island debacle and everything that else is going on or not going on there, but why do you think we haven't had the list from the Trump administration like we were promised?
Probably, like you guys were already talking about, there's too many big names that are on it to where like that's skeletons, that's the corpse, it's the boogeyman that's all in the closet that God forbid that comes out. All the big elites are it's out. Everything's out. Like, oh, so you were there, you're part of it. Oh, you've always been doing this. And for all that to come to light would just be just the most detrimental thing that could happen.
Well, you see, that's like I said, that's kind of my fear with the whole thing. If this was just a matter of it being a bunch of famous people, actors, Hollywood producers, this, that, and all the rest of that were, out there doing these things, even if it was, minor politicians, I have the feeling that there are too many business leaders, too many people who have national security clearances. Too many big-time politicians might have had something to do with it. They're going to hold the rest of the world hostage for their anonymity. If you let this out about me, I'm gonna tell everybody about the truth about this or the truth about that. These people that know where the bodies are buried. If you got people in major industry that are there, I mean, think about the destruction that could be if, say, a huge beverage company that everybody owns a tremendous amount of stock in on their 401k. If their CEO or board of directors were found to all be child rapists, imagine what would happen to the stock of that company tomorrow. It would plummet. It would destroy. People would lose billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I think it's because of shit like that the reason that we're never going to find the truth about this thing. The same reason why they timed the release of the Kennedy papers so that the very last people that ever had anything to do with the Kennedy assassination or investigation would be dead by the time they were released. Everybody who stood foot in Dealey Plaza in 1963, they're going to wait for every single one of those eyewitnesses to be dead before they truly release all the paperwork. Anybody that could offer a shred of anything other than the official testimony and government story, they're going to wait for them to be dead before they release anything so that nobody can get in trouble. That's what I think is happening.
Well, it's one of the stories that's been floating around. But to be fair, it's 5 years too late. The news is already dead. No one cares. I understand why you care, Frank, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't care. I'm not saying people shouldn't care about it, but as the news cycle goes, in terms of the way the politics is presented and the way a large number of people react to the issues that are going on any given day, it's a dead issue. Everyone is already pissed off. Everyone thinks that you're never going to find out about Epstein. We're never going to know the truth about JFK. No matter what they say at this point, well, no matter what list they come out with, no matter what evidence they come out with in terms of JFK, there's going to be a segment of the population never going to believe them. They're never going to believe them.
And who do we have to blame for that? The media.
Yes.
Because the media is so constantly obsessed with the next shiny thing and playing partisan politics that instead of grasping onto something like a fucking pit bull and holding on until the truth is revealed, they wait for the next, there's another call, let's chase that one. You know, whatever it bleeds, it leads. That's it. And they don't care that there's how many tens of thousands you could fill Yankee Stadium thrice over with the number of children that are missing and exploited in this country alone. You could fill that stadium. If you put that visual up there and you let people see the actual face of the suffering in the numbers that we're talking about, because people get blind to the numbers. It's like Eddie Izzard has this thing where he talks about murderers. You know, it's like, you tell somebody you killed 2 people, they're shocked, they're appalled, or whatever. You tell them, oh, you killed 40 people. Oh, oh my God, you're the worst person who ever lived. And then you get to Adolf Hitler, and he killed 100 million people. Oh, well, very good. Well, that's pretty impressive. It gets to a point where the shock gets taken away to the point where it becomes an achievement. And I think that's where we are right now, is people are no longer shocked by the numbers of children that are missing in this country.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think we haven't normalized it. No, I think people still care, but it is detached because it is such a large number, because it's not our kids, because it didn't happen in our country, because the news was so suppressed when it did happen, and because the main targets, Epstein himself, is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail. So it's not an immediate issue in the mind of most people. The people who they would look at, the names they would look at, they've been punished. And the names they don't know are the names they can't attach a feeling to. So that's it.
Well,
I think when you compare that to things that what's happening right now, like what we're seeing with Letitia James, what's happening right now, like with several other issues, we'll get to them each individually. I think you're seeing a very different response. I don't know. Dalen, what are you thinking?
I mean, I can see both points. It is very detached. Where it's still a serious issue, but you see it time and time again. But I would almost say the reason for it being detached is like, well, what can be done? Only so much you can only talk about it so much. You can only try to hold the people that are the ones who are going to look into it are the ones that are seemingly at fault for it. So it doesn't seem like there's ever going to be any progress in them doing a self-investigation. Because kind of like how Frank spoke on, if it comes out, if the list does come out and all these companies go under because the stock falls because of the people behind it are the leaders of these major corporations, they're not going to turn themselves in, or they're not going to look into it. So it just almost feels hopeless and so detached because of that. Like, I want to do something. I want something to happen, but if I can't actively do it, I can't rely on other people to bring it to light, then damn, what can I do? You know, what can be done?
Yeah, I get that. I don't know. I think everyone has, for better or for worse, everyone's moved on. And until there's something that sparks the public again, bringing it back
Well-
into the public attention, it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, you know who hasn't moved on? The parents of the children that are still missing.
Of course.
They haven't moved on. The
Of course.
victims who have offered testimony and have been silenced by the media, they haven't moved on.
I
By
understand that.
people in this country who spent part of their own childhood being victimized, who can empathize with those kids that are nameless, faceless, that will never have an answer to, they haven't moved on. These people all want an answer. We deserve to have an answer, and the people responsible for anything that was done wrong on that island, they need to pay a price. And the fact that Americans, for the most part, like you're saying, are moved on, makes me ashamed of them, because there are some things in this world you should not move on from. We don't move on from 7 million Jews being exterminated in World War II. We don't move on for the 100 million Russians that were starved to death during the war by their own leaders. We don't move on from what happened in Cambodia in the killing fields. We don't move on from 9/11. We don't move on from Pearl Harbor. We don't move on for any of these things. Why the hell should we move on for something that happened to the most innocent and helpless victims that we could possibly have? Children who were exploited, and probably by their own government.
I'm not
Because
saying
how many of these friggin' kids, how many of these kids did Joe Biden lose track of? Did the Obama administration lose track of? They just signed children over to people, never got a phone address, never got a phone number, never got an ID.
that happened. I agree.
And
I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not.
Oh, I know you're not.
get
I know you're not trying to minimize it. I know you're not trying to minimize it. But what I'm trying to do is for the people that might be listening, that might actually give a shit, to maybe make a phone call, maybe ask a question or two, to maybe say, you know what, we haven't forgotten about these kids. We haven't forgotten about what happened. We want the answers, and wherever the chips fall, the chips fall. Yes, if there's big corporation people, you know what, we could isolate things. We can do things to shore up the bases before things collapse. There are things that can be done precautionary to make sure that people's 401ks don't suffer and our national security isn't put at risk. We can do these things, but for God's sake, let's hold people responsible for what they did. And the only way that's going to happen is if the people continue to apply pressure on it. You still have people every day out there friggin' waving signs for their $25 minimum wage. They don't give up on that shit. Why are we going to let people give up on the kids? I don't.
The guys with the $25 minimum wage don't get attention, except when there's something else that brings attention to it. It's not that same thing. I was over Saturday. I was in the Bronx talking about lithium ion power plants that are a direct health and safety danger, and New York City itself is breaking its own laws and regulations to build that in a residential neighborhood right next door to a apartment building with at least 15 children in it, and no one covered it. I get it. It's a pain in the ass, but we need.
All right, but here's the thing: New Yorkers brought all this shit. Everything that this is why I don't care about New York anymore, because everything that happens in New York is by your own hands. Every,
what
I
happens in
I
Europe
don't mean
happens.
you. I don't mean you, Mike. I'm talking about the voters. I'm talking about the apathetic ones that stay home and don't bother to vote. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the 60% of the voters in New York City that continue to vote for the left, regardless of what the hell policies they are. They don't even pay attention to the policy. They look for the D or
That's
the R and they
America.
go for the D.
Yeah,
I
but
don't.
Frank, that's
I don't
America.
care about.
Yeah,
I
but
don't care
that is
about their
America.
complaints. I
Yeah,
don't
but
care about their complaints because they could have stopped it. They
yes,
could have prevented
Frank,
things from happening if they voted.
but Frank, that is America, and you can see that in every state, in everywhere. And what happens in New York with these kinds of things happens everywhere. Dalen, if you disagree, by the way, Dalen, just jump in. Don't wait for us to pause. Jump in.
No,
We have
I
to say that to
understand.
everyone who's new. Yeah, most people aren't used to it, and they're like, "Well, they're going to wait for me." No, sometimes we don't. Just jump in. But you look at the midterm elections, you look at the off-year elections. You're looking at roughly 50 to 60, sometimes almost 70%, depending on the state, of people who don't know the issues, don't care, and they only vote on whatever they see as the latest commercial that the mainstream news media is putting out there. And they're very selective. So I don't disagree with you, but I'm saying until we can get something to liven it up and catch people's attention again, they have droned it out. That's why we're talking about things with Letitia James. That's why we're talking about what happened with the lithium ion battery plants, why we're going to be talking about what's happening with Cody Balmer, the arson in Pennsylvania, talking about the guy who stabbed a kid. What's his name? Stabbed a kid in the chest, all of that. But go ahead, Dalen, go ahead.
No. I mean, I've just mostly been quiet because I'm not as up to date on kind of a lot of the stuff. I don't really follow any like news media or just news, and kind of in general, I'm still looking for a source that's reputable to be able to kind of keep track of all this to a degree. But
Which one?
I mean,
I can
yeah,
tell you a couple of them. Depends on the story.
yeah. It's so I mean, it all depends on I used to live in Florida, and Florida is a hotspot for New Yorkers and now Californians, and I mean, there's cases across any state really of like, hey, you left your state because of a reason. Of how the prank said, you left your state for a reason. Don't vote the same way in the new state to just make the same problem. But
I wish.
in that regard, so it's. But like you said, I can understand of, if it doesn't from my own personal experience, if it doesn't directly involve me, which is why I look into the firearm and two-way side of things of like, oh, what are they trying to get me now? Like, if it's not directly involving me, it's not necessarily like on the radar. But so like, yeah, how do you word it or bring it to attention to where it's like, hey, no, this doesn't affect you now, but to like, oh, this bill is now going to affect this, which is byproduct and affect how much you're paying on your house and property taxes somehow, to really make it more engaging to the everyday person to bring attention to it. Because if not, it's like, oh, well, they're doing what? They passed this bill? Okay, cool. What's it got to do with me? To have some sort of resource to really bring forth the attention to everyday people to show them like, hey, this is affecting you in this and this way. Care about it.
Well,
What's your opinion?
I'm glad you bring that up. Slightly different topic, because Kathy Hochul signed into law a ammo registration bill. Essentially, she's tracking people who own firearms,
Right.
and this is going to be copied in California. It's going to be copied in Illinois, in Maryland. You'll see it in Washington State, Oregon. It'll go into the top 10 bluer than blue states. They're all going to do this, and you'll see they'll try and pass a national law for this, where they're tracking ammo. And
Right.
the statement is, we're doing this to make you safe. We need to track the ammo so that you will be protected. And that's their slogan. And they've got a lot of people who are like, yeah, that sounds fantastic, because of emotion. We're doing something. We're going to make you safe. But people haven't actually thought it through and said to themselves, okay, how is this stopping anyone? Criminals don't normally register their ammo, just like they don't register their guns. But let's say they did. How does that, even if 100% of everyone who buys ammo is tracked, okay, we know who did it. That doesn't stop one mass shooter. It doesn't stop one school shooter. It doesn't protect anyone from a Venezuelan gang, MS-13. It doesn't stop a single criminal, not one. You can falsify who bought the ammo. You can, you don't care. A lot of these mass shooters, they're going for death by cop, so they don't care if you know. And
Right.
you can't say, oh, well, you bought ammo, so you must be a bad guy. There's 160 million people with firearms. They can get ammo. People who are enthusiasts for hunting or for just trap shooting or for any reason. So I bought ammo. That doesn't mean that I'm a mass shooter suddenly. This doesn't protect anyone. They have lied to our faces, and the emotion carries us forward. Does that make sense to what you were saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's always the guise of safety. That's whatever excuse. It's the emotion that they always try to pull of or tug on those heartstrings to make it seem like it's good. Like the Save the Puppies Act is fantastic in name, but you look through the bill or what they're trying to sign in, and it's just doing nothing but stripping people of their own liberties and rights. But it's got a fun name, so they get people on it. And like you said, criminals don't follow the law anyways. And even if that were to go into effect, all that's going to do is catch it after the fact, so you can see who used the ammo. If, like you said, it's not a death by cop situation anyway, so it's a lot tugging on heartstrings for, it seems like, the layman's who don't understand that that's the ploy and why. Like it just doesn't make sense. Once you really look at it, like the NSA Act, we're going to spy on everybody just to catch the few bad people, but everybody's getting spied on, so you shouldn't feel as bad or like you're targeted. It's like, well, it's just another way to monitor people and take away their liberties of, their liberty to, or their right to privacy in their own home. But it's under the guise for public safety. When, I mean, that's kind of the point of the Second Amendment: have everybody give everybody an option to defend themselves, to be ready, versus any law that limits anything in that regard is just putting the civilians at a disadvantage and empowering the criminals, because they obviously don't follow the law. So why do they care?
Well, Frank, let me ask you your thoughts on, in terms of the New York ammo bill, which is going to be copied. We know that. And my supposition that this doesn't, and it's not just a supposition, the data, empirical data, tells us that gun control, especially trying to track people's purchases, doesn't have any connection to reducing crime. In fact, it's not an attempt to, I would say, based on the data, knowing that it has no correlation, no connection to actually stopping crime, the only reason why it must be done is because there's another agenda. And that agenda only affects law-abiding citizens. What do you think?
Well, the Kathy Hochul can suck it. She can suck it big, long, and hard until she chokes on it. Okay, that buck-toothed tyrant, that wannabe Mussolini, that was, just left in office after Cuomo was disgraced. This whole let's track your ammo purchase is a means of them trying to establish probable cause. Because what they're going to say is, since you can't own a firearm in New York unless you have some sort of permit, then you should not be in possession of ammunition. Why are you in possession of ammunition?
Because I want to.
So they want to establish probable cause, so that this way they could use it as a means of trying to petition liberal court judges to sign off on search warrants, so that they could easily violate everybody's Fourth Amendment rights. And they don't give a shit at all about the ramifications, because they know, like every other gun law, it's going to take 8 to 10 years before some court, some judge somewhere says this is unconstitutional. I noticed they don't track alcohol purchases.
Well,
I noticed they don't.
alcohol purchases or vehicle. They don't track engines in cars, but they
No,
probably,
but they do.
baseball
But you can't buy NyQuil or something like that. You can't buy certain drugs without having to, over the counter drugs that you can't. You have to show ID and sign the logbook as to you being sick, and you have to get a doctor's note to get over the counter because they want to make sure that. You bought this drug. You must be making methamphetamines. And they're going to use that as a means of trying to get into people's houses to, or to surveil them. Listen, New Yorkers, if you're in New York and you want to buy ammo, go over the border, go to Pennsylvania, buy your ammo there.
Well,
Travel north. If you have to, if you don't buy, and listen, and since they want to do with the background checks on ammunition now they want to have the credit card companies track and report to them. Mm-hmm. If you're going to buy anything, use cash. Go to Pennsylvania and buy it. And you know what? Resist. Let's use the left-wing rhetoric and their slogans against them. Resist. Do everything you possibly can to circumvent every bullshit law they come up with. You are free to travel. You can go across the border. You can go to another state. You can order your stuff there. Got a friend in Pennsylvania? Order stuff and have it delivered to their house. When they come and visit, have them drop it off. Am I telling you to break the law? Yeah, because I think the law is bullshit. And I think it's unconstitutional. And I don't care. I don't care anymore about what New York does. New York is no longer a state. New York is a commonwealth up until their own. They don't treat their citizens like citizens. They treat you like subjects. It's your own damn fault for being apathetic and only voting every 4 years instead of every 2. And this is the hell you have wrought upon yourselves. It's up to you to get out of it or figure out a way to avoid it.
No, it's voting.
And yes, Kathy Hochul can suck it. Yeah. And whatever it is, a 50-pound piece of fecal matter from the anus of a dead whale, she can suck it. I don't care.
I can't speak to that part, but I can.
I want, and anybody who's in Germany, I want you to understand something. I'm allowed to say this, and you can't arrest me for insulting you. So for our German friends who get arrested because they insult somebody online, this is what freedom looks like. You get to say what you want, when you want, about who you want, especially a public figure, a tyrant in this case. Maybe you guys should think about that too. Get some freedom.
Germany, France, England, Canada all have the same regulations in terms of if you insult a public figure, you can be arrested for that. They all have laws on that, which is insane. But that's
a man in London got arrested. A man in London got arrested for flying the Union Jack while a parade of Islamists were walking down the street. He got arrested for flying his own nation's flag in his own nation. Yeah. Because the people that have invaded his country took objection to it. The London police right now are pretty much enforcing Sharia law on the people of Great Britain.
Not quite there, but they're getting close to it. But then again, we're getting the same.
A woman was arrested standing outside of an abortion provider for praying in her own head. She was praying silently.
Yeah, it was a priest.
Silently. They arrested her for what she was thinking. She was thinking.
Unless there was a second arrest for that same crime, it was a priest who did it. It was a man, a priest, who got arrested for it
No,
about
this
a
was
year ago. So there's a
no
second.
this was a woman
Okay, so there's two
who
cases.
every day walks by an abortion clinic in London,
I understand.
and she walks by, and while she was standing on the street corner
Mhm.
trying to cross the street, she said, "I was praying to myself for those babies,"
Mhm.
and the police arrested her
Yeah, that's the
for
second time.
praying to herself.
Yes, that's the
Great
second time it's
Britain,
happened in England.
Europe is lost.
Yeah,
They're done.
yes, and then that again, that's the second time that's happened. There's a trend, but we're seeing that here in the United States as well. It's not as we're getting close to it being that extreme, and we are seeing it gaining that kind of popularity, especially in communities, certain hyper specific communities like Dearborn, Michigan. They're pushing probably harder and faster, but we're seeing it in Michigan, we're seeing it in Wisconsin, we're seeing it in Illinois. That's one of the hotbeds in the nation. We're seeing it all over there, and I think that's a big problem. It is a major issue because our freedom of speech is under attack. And when I say that, we're not talking about, there's a big difference between what we're talking about here in terms of the freedom of speech versus, and I know people will point to, well, Harvard, they're being punished. They don't have any freedom of speech because the government just took away $2.2 billion in funding to their college. Well, here's the difference. First of all, Harvard is not bankrupt. They are highly profitable on their own. The government taking away $2.2 billion a year doesn't stop Harvard from doing anything that Harvard wants to do. That's pure profit for them. So one, they're not stopped from anything. Two, I'm happy that the government isn't going to be stop the government from paying for a private institution to do that, whatever the hell they want. Don't take the government money if you don't want government rules going with it. But they don't want to do that. Oh, no, they want the money and they want the freedom and they want to piss off people and say, oh, we're being suppressed. No, Harvard is in no way, shape, or form hindered by not getting public taxpayer money. That's just ridiculous. So, no, there is no First Amendment issue about Harvard not being able to get government money and have government rules attached to that money. I think that's a very big difference. You guys may disagree with me on that. Dalen, any thoughts?
I was looking at some other stuff. I apologize. I wasn't 100% there.
No, we can keep going. Okay, let's keep moving. Did you guys hear, and something that is pretty big, and we spoke about the UK, just to let people know, UK is not lost yet. They just decided in their courts that a woman is a woman, biological woman. That's it. Women are women, men are men. You can live whatever life you want to live. No one's stopping you from that. But a woman is a woman, a man is a man, according to UK courts. So there is some hope for the UK. But here in the United States, did you hear about the arson at the governor's house in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, from what I understand, he's a left-wing socialist lunatic who's got multiple arrests for different violent crimes and assaults and all the rest of this silly stuff. And again, they're eating their own, and I think it's funny.
Dalen?
So what happened?
So what happened is over the weekend, Saturday, as I recall, an individual, his name is Cody Balmer. Okay. Matter of fact, I will put up the link in the description in just 1 second.
Pennsylvania
so everyone will be able to see it. Yeah, no, I'll bring it up on the screen. And his name is Cody Balmer. Now, this individual is really special. This is the guy. Okay. And he decided that because the Pennsylvania governor is Jewish, because he supports terrorism, specifically Hamas, a terrorist organization that killed 34 Americans on October 7th, 2023, that captured, killed 34, captured 22 Americans, and killed, as we understand, 17 of them by torture. And this is what this guy supports. He's upset that Josh Shapiro, a Democrat, doesn't support the murder of American citizens by a terrorist organization, and in fact wants the United States government to give more money and help to the terrorists because of genocide. He's a genocidal maniac, in my opinion. And so this guy said, you know what? The answer is what the left always does, because they always resort to violence every single time, whether it's rioting in the streets, whether it's trying to occupy various cities and states, whether it's going into buildings to threaten college students, looting across the country. The left always resorts to violence when they don't get what they personally feel like. And this guy is an example of it. He decided, well, since the governor, a Democrat, is Jewish and he doesn't support Hamas, a terrorist organization, then his answer was, let me try and kill him through arson. And the left are trying to say, well, you know, this guy, he went a little too far, but it's okay. Because
it's a bit more than a little.
Not according to the left. The left are like, well, he's justified because Hamas are dying. This is what the left is saying.
Yeah, that's setting like you say, and to make it make sense. The left is always going to such extremes, but that's setting very, very dangerous precedent for any future. Like, oh, I can do something such as trying to burn somebody alive in their own home, and at the very most, the left is gonna look at it as so much of a slap on the wrist, where it's like that's setting some very, very dangerous behavior for anybody who sees this and be like, well, I'm pretty outspoken about my beliefs and my ideas. Let me try to do something like this. I think that's insane.
Well, if we look at the history of the left in this country, there's a couple by the name of Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. They were part of a left-wing hippie terrorist organization back in the 60s and 70s. And as time went by and they both got professorships in some college or whatever, they wound up helping mold and bring to the forefront what would become the 44th president of the United States, Barack Obama. And they advocated and were convicted of firebombing police stations, firebombing Congress. And these are the people who gave birth to the political career of Barack Obama. So this isn't a precedent by any stretch of the imagination. This is common practice. This is what they do. And it always gets excused. And when you sit and you look at the media and how they're going to try and play this story will disappear quickly because he doesn't fit the narrative. The trannies who go out there shooting up schools, they don't fit the narrative. The ones who try to assassinate the president, they don't fit the narrative because they're not angry, middle-aged, white, Christian, conservative guys. So they don't fit the narrative. This story will disappear quicker than the charges against Alec Baldwin. It will disappear. And again, it's business as usual for the left. This is what they do. This is their history. And the reason why this keeps repeating itself, they say, oh, those who don't learn from history are destined to repeat it. Because the people don't get a chance to learn from this history because the media hides it from them. It whitewashes them. So when I can recall 100 events that took place at the hands of leftists, the media doesn't report on 99 of them. So that's why the people don't. That's why it seems like, oh, this is an aberration in the Matrix. This isn't the norm. No, this is the norm. This happens constantly. Do you know how many conservative radio hosts and podcasters have all been swatted in the last month?
Oh yeah.
This
Probably
is the
tons.
left. Yeah, the left trying to get people killed by police. They get your address. They use some sort of weird computer algorithm to make a 911 call, and they wind up sending SWAT teams to the houses of these prominent conservatives with the hopes that, at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, that the police kick a door in, and then here's his radio host, I don't know, maybe thinks his house is being under attack. He grabs his gun to defend his family, and the cops kill him, his wife, and his kids. That's what the left wants, because it's one less conservative voice, and the left gets to say, see, the police just made a mistake showing up at the wrong house, and these conservatives always act violently. That's why they were killed. This is their shtick. They live for the violence. That's why I said the left doesn't care about school shootings. They love school shootings. They love little children laying in a classroom in pools of blood. They love it. They pray for it to happen every day because it plays into their agenda. What they don't understand is that the perpetrators of these things are from their own ranks. And they can't justify that. So what they'll do is they'll get as much traction out of the dead bodies as they possibly can, while then hiding the record of the perpetrator in the hopes that it's one of us. And it never is.
No, it never is, because the right is, and they always go to, they have like one example that they misreport and they misidentify and they exaggerate on a regular basis, which is always January 6th. Well, January 6th. Wait a minute. We can name 15 examples within the last year and a half, 15 examples across the country of the left doing what we just saw this guy, Cody Balmer, what he did. We can go through 15 examples of that all across the country. They have one day where the public, the worst thing that the public did that day, 5 people roughly assaulted a police officer. No officers died. And they broke a couple of windows, a couple of doors. Should those people be charged with their crimes? Absolutely. And they were. But here's the thing. That's the worst thing that happened with 300,000 people, and no one brought a firearm, and that's what 300,000 people did. Look at what we can point to in just the last, we can just go to this year alone, where we had, Columbia? Just a month ago, Columbia was not even a month ago, that Columbia was being taken over because a bunch of leftists decided that they were supporting Hamas. So they decided to break and enter and occupy, kidnap, take over, however you want to word it, some of the buildings, threatening fellow students, preventing them from getting the education that they are paying for dearly, $60,000, $70,000 a year. And they denied them that just because of feelings. And that's just another example. We can go through example after example. We've got dozens of them just at the beginning, since the beginning of 2025. They have one day. And we're supposed to be, MAGA's just evil and horrible. People who are on the right, conservatives and Republicans, are just evil, horrible people because of one day 5 years ago. But you know what? The left is perfect angels. Even though they've done 15,000, we have hundreds of examples across the country every single year. It's insane to me. It's insane.
No, absolutely. I mean, and especially with, the January 6th stuff of like, how many trials have there been, or how many court appearances have there been where they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we can't say whether or not the FBI was there because it's just not gonna, like, we just can't answer that. It's like, what the hell do you mean you can't answer that? That alone sounds pretty damning of, that this being, whether it left or right, doesn't matter the what wing of the bird, it's still the same bird. Of like, you mean to tell me this is, the theory of that the FBI or the government is the one that's kind of orchestrating these things. And I would say even to, I would look into it to some degree of all the left leaning stuff of, the who are these people talking to? Let's start, like, why is there let me see phone records. Let me see chat records. Let me see who is communicating to these people that kind of would, well, not the Cody Balmer in this case. He seems that he's had a lot of stuff previously throughout the years, but in a lot of these horrible situations that, it's a member of the left, doing these heinous acts that kind of just come out of nowhere, like all these, I forget the one, but it was the Christian school,
Well, let me push back, Dalen.
Yeah.
They usually don't come out of nowhere. They almost always have a history of having done, and there's usually an escalation that they've gone from protesting, which is fine. I would not stop anyone from protesting.
Right.
If you want to stand outside with a sign, fantastic. You want to try and draw a crowd to speak to them, fantastic. First Amendment right, I support that. Then they escalate that and they start pushing on people. They attack people they don't like. They prevent people from going home to work by blocking off the streets. They start breaking windows of businesses they don't like. They start threatening people. They start burning down people's Teslas and their vehicles and damaging them. And that's the progression. It gets worse and worse. They go to property damage. They go impeding people. And then they have the big moment where they try and take someone's life. So that's a little pushback there. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. That's a failure on my part for not doing any kind of deeper digging, because I just see the more prominent, like school shootings. Like I think this is the one that was in Madison, the Madison Christian school shooting, where like all the stuff that they were talking about of, the person was having gender identity issues or whatever, but they were I don't know if there were anything prior to them.
Is that Tennessee or no? There was a copycat. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I think it was the Madison, Wisconsin, where the person had bought a firearm legally. They were able to do everything. All the paperwork cleared. From what I have seen, no prior signs of kind of any kind of escalation of this just kind of being just the one and done, because the cops thankfully did their job in this instance. Not to mention Uvalde in any case, but that's a failure in and of itself. But of just in situations like that, where I do need to go and do more research on these, the perpetrators to see if there's anything prior. But no, absolutely. I mean, start small. The whole Tesla thing is insane. And like it's already been stated that it's kind of just how the left has been operating. Of like, you just set an electric car on fire, which are known to like of how serious it is. It's like you can't just put that out. So at that point, I feel like it should go beyond. Yeah, that's beyond like setting a car on fire, whatever arson. It's like you just lit a napalm bomb. I mean, that should be some level of more extreme to like. You don't just get a slap on the wrist of like an arson charge. It's like, no, you have, in essence, depending on where it's at, you have ruined that chunk of road. Like that much heat ruins, the concrete. So it's like it seems like it'd be property damage, if not damage to the city. Like, and again, it's just where it takes to remotely even minimize the fire from an electric vehicle is. I mean, it just seems like that needs to be taken much more seriously. That's a bit of a tangent, but I mean, it's the escalation to the final, death by cop or whatever the extreme variant they want to go out in, or just try to, or if it all just gets swept under the rug like it has been, it's a lot to take in.
Well, I understand, but that's one of the reasons why we have a program like this. That's why I do the stuff I do as well, where, we smash through so many different things so we can inform the public of what is actually happening rather than the news media, which gives these kind of stories 30 seconds, maybe
Right.
a minute and a half if it's really big, if they choose to cover it at all. And then they move on to the next story, which is really insane. By the way, speaking of moving on to things, one thing I want to do, we did get $1.99. That was the super chat from Peace Logic. I want to thank Peace Logic on behalf of everyone here. Thank you for your support on the program. And everyone, whether you're making comments or you're making super chats, we appreciate each and every one of you because it helps us to do things we're doing, like this conversation, or Frank going down along with Mike Marshall and being live at the NRA and doing all of the days of interviews that they're going to be doing. It's all because of your support, folks. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe.
Well, we have an update on the NRA. Dalen's going to be joining us at the NRA to do the interviews with everybody, and so is our friend Rich Sarapovich. Rich was on the show a couple of times with us, going way back when I had my my ankle and foot reconstructed after surgery and stuff like that. However, Mike Marshall is going to be joining us via telecommunication link because he can't make the trip down there. So we're going to be, a little bit short-handed in the seats, but from a camera perspective, you won't know the difference. And we picked up a whole bunch of brand new stuff to try and make the show that much more interesting for everybody next week. So it's gonna be fun. I hope everybody pays attention. I want everybody, please hit the alert bells, whatever channel you're watching this on. Hit the alert bells, especially on the Range Report and the Liberty First Foundation YouTube channels, so that when we come up, because we're going to be appearing on 3 different times on the 25th, 6th, and 7th. We're going to be 3-hour intervals at 3 different times of the day. Plus, they're going to be rebroadcast at some point. You can always go back and watch them later on. But we are going to have a star-studded cast of guests appearing on the show with us. And of course, Vass will be here, and he'll be always welcome to join on the show whenever we go live. So it'll be fun. And Hochul can suck it.
Frank has a very strong opinion there.
Just keep throwing it in where you can.
Yeah.
Those teeth of his. I think what we should do is have like a celebrity death match between Hochul's teeth and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's teeth, and see who can outbuck the other.
I don't care about appearances.
I don't either. But don't stand there with your friggin' teeth trying to act like you're superior to. Oh, speaking of it, did you see Alyssa Milano's mother, Gretchen Whitmarsh, there, whatever she was, hiding behind a folder in the White House this week?
Okay.
Nashville.
First of all, Alyssa Milano is an actress, and Gretchen Whitmer, governor. They're not related. But yes. It was in the news. It's very prominent. And I think this is one of the most stupid things. The left is so, and again, going back to what we were just talking about, the left is so myopic that they hate that, Trump's in office. They have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. They are so angry with anyone who doesn't agree with them that here it is. Gretchen Whitmer went to the White House to get help. She's the governor of Wisconsin, and she's trying to get help for her constituents. I don't have a problem with that. She's a governor going to the president, to the United States government, to try and get help for whatever issues she's trying to deal with in her state. Fantastic. And she's getting the help that any governor should be able to get. And because the president is Donald Trump, because he's a Republican, she's hiding her face so that there won't be, somehow she thought that people either wouldn't recognize her or they take a photo for the re-election ads.
Yeah, nobody saw her going into the White House. Nobody saw her schedule of events that was posted on her website. Nobody saw her leaving the White House in her black and blue little outfit. Nobody saw, the list of people that was, at the meeting that was on the White House daily briefing. Nobody saw any of this, but she's going to stand there hiding behind a little folder like we don't know she's there. Listen, Governor Oil Slick, if you want to hide behind something, what's that?
Oil slick?
Yeah, she's the shiniest looking governor you've ever seen in her life. She never takes a powder. If you want to hide behind something, why don't you hide behind your executive order that you issued during COVID, where you prevented people from being allowed to go buy seeds so they could grow their own vegetables and their own fruits? Why don't you hide behind that? Why don't you hide behind your executive order that made sure that if a family was out in the street during COVID, that you could give them summonses and arrest the parents and separate the children? Oh, wait a second. Separating children from their parents? I thought that was something that only Trump did. No, that's a mainstay of left-wing politics. Why don't you hide behind your executive orders about putting sick people with COVID into the nursing homes and retirement homes that were otherwise, uninfected completely, and putting them with the most vulnerable citizens and letting them die because of your mismanagement, because you had to follow Cuomo's lead? Why don't you hide behind some of that? That's right. You can't hide behind it because it's part of the record.
Actually, Frank, the left find those things to be positives. That's why she's elected. That's why Cuomo was elected.
They can think so. They can think it's positive. But if she thinks for a second that when she launches her 2028 campaign bid for the presidency that we're going to forget it,
no,
we're not.
Oh, of course.
We're not going to forget it.
And whether or not there's a picture, I mean, it's actually worse for her. She's more stupid to put that folder over her face when we know exactly who it was and we have all the evidence, and she put her face there. That's even worse. You know what? Be proud that you went, and if you want to look at it from the left, the smartest thing they could have done is, oh, you know what? I went to battle with the president to fight for my people. That's what they could have said, but she wouldn't show her face. So you're not even proud of fighting for the people in her state that elected her. She has no pride. She doesn't care. She's more concerned about her reelection than getting the job done for the people she is obligated, sworn oath to take care of. That just tells you where her priorities are versus, just hers. Forget about anyone else. Her priorities are get reelected, not, there it is. That's Gretchen Whitmer for you folks. That's how proud she is to do her job for the people of her state. That says it all right there. Dalen?
She's disgusting.
I don't know. Are we all
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I'm learning a lot about and just kind of more of the so-and-so, which I'm really appreciative of, because just seeing, it's like, it's funny to listen to another podcast of, a guy, of how they were talking about how it's like anybody in the public seat should never be a career, and I think I would second that opinion, because it's like, you're a civil servant. You're supposed to come in, do your job to help your people, and how did he word it? He said it was a person in a seat of power, I think not in Congress, but of some local government, where he was saying of
term limits.
Yeah, term limits, but also to the point of he's like, any new person to come in, what are you willing to lose your seat over? Because if they don't give an answer, then his theory, or his thinking on it is, well, if you don't give me an answer, then that means you are willing to settle on anything to keep your seat, to keep your job. Term limits. pay limits, just anything that can have people focus on the job versus what can I do to stay in and make the most amount of money possible. Like, because then you forget your position to your people, you know.
Well, I get. Here's I couldn't answer a question. Well, I could answer it partially, because I understand there's the red lines, the absolutes. Like when I ran for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually run for elected office before, and I do have at the time I still do certain positions that are absolute for me. Like I'm pro-life. Okay, absolute.
Right.
Whether other people may have different, that's me. When I ran, that was my position. I was very clear about that. I have no problem with saying that. And if a pro-life bill came in front of me, well, I'm voting for pro-life against abortions. Same thing with Second Amendment. I'm voting against gun control and more individual control. That's where I'm voting. So it's clear, and people vote for you or they don't for that. Most politicians don't do that. Now, on every other subject, let's talk the issues. Let's have the conversation, weigh the pros and cons. If a politician was saying that, I'd be like, okay, I can get it. Here's your absolute, and everything else is negotiable. And if I can live with that, okay. If I can live with those absolutes, fine. You never hear that. So you're right. Most of them are just there, but it's worse than that, because look at people like AOC and many of the members of the squad, Hakeem Jeffries and others, that are willing to, they start with one position, they go somewhere else. Bernie Sanders, great example. Bernie Sanders, he had the Bernie Bros and so many people behind him. This is a self-proclaimed and self-identified communist, not socialist, communist, who is a multimillionaire with 3 homes that are only for him and his family. We have to pay higher taxes. He could sell one of those houses and donate that money to the government, because you can voluntarily pay more than your share in taxes if you want to. And he is a multimillionaire, and he has 3 homes. He doesn't need to take off one of them. Okay, you got a summer home, you got your main home. What's the third one for? Sell it.
Right.
Well,
he's a communist. That would be true to his ideals, and yet no one's going to him and going, Bernie, by the way, why don't you volunteer some money to the government since you're not paying enough in taxes?
Well, don't you remember his tagline was, we got to get the millionaires and billionaires to pay their fair share in taxes. Now it's the billionaires. No longer the millionaires. It's the billionaires got to pay their fair share of taxes. When he becomes a billionaire, he'll be telling the trillionaires that they have to pay their fair share.
Yeah,
right. Always moving the goalpost.
Yeah. They moved and those are the politicians that really catch my ire, because it's so duplicitous. It's so intentional. And they're out there going, but I'm on your side. Then why aren't you true to your own ideology? Not my ideology. I'm not asking them to become true to my ideals. You're not even true to your own stated, documented ideals.
And you want to know something? It's even deeper than that too, because I have long considered, yes, me, running for politics at some point or another, and thinking to myself, with my foul mouth and my illustrative way of speaking, there'd be a slim chance in hell that I would either win everything in a landslide, or I would be laughed out of the race. One of the two. There'd be no. There'd be no in between for me. But here's the thing where I draw the line is, you can have an ideology and you can vote with your ideology. And there are certain things that you can believe with your whole heart. But if you're not voting with the Constitution, that's the problem. Because you can have some thoughts and say, you believe this or you believe that, or I believe one thing or I believe another. If you're voting on what you believe instead of voting for what's constitutional, there's a problem. because there are certain things that you should be able to say, you know what, because I know that I believe something, but I believe something that is in aversion to the Constitution. I have to vote against what I believe because I know that, constitutionally speaking, it may be wrong. And I'll give you a for instance about that. You have a lot of people that think that the line item veto is something that the president should have. And for a while, I was one of those people that say, you know what, the line item veto is good because you have a great bill, but there's one thing in it that's really bad. The president should be able to veto that one line in that bill and pass the rest of it. Because the phrase is, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. How long have we heard this,
Yeah.
But the problem is, people tend to forget that human beings are fallible.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have something like a line item veto, what happens when you've got a horrible, horrible bill? Something that you know is going to be horribly detrimental to the existence of the country, and you get one senator or one congressperson that says, I'm going to insert a line into this bill specifically so I can kill it. And it's happened before. There was a bill about giving illegals amnesty and giving them all the right to vote and doing this and doing that. All that. This is when the Democrats under Obama had the House and the Senate, and they had the ability to override any sort of Republican interference. They could have passed everything they wanted to, and they had the amnesty bill put up there. It was Ted Cruz that inserted a line into it that no Democrat could possibly vote for. If the line item veto was in existence, that bill would have passed the House and the Senate as it is, gotten to the president's desk, and Obama would have been able to veto the poison pill, therefore completely destroying the fabric of America. So while people may think ideologically, you know what, this might be a good idea, that might be a good idea, you have to think deeper and really assess, is your ideology something that's going to be complicit with the Constitution or go against it? What's it going to be? And I mean, do I believe, somebody hurts your kid, you should be allowed to hunt them down and hurt them back? Yeah, I firmly believe that I should be allowed to do that. Is it legal? No, it's not legal. So, even though I might believe in something, I would have to vote against it because I know it's not legal. I know it's not constitutional. So there is a difference between people who vote for their ideology and stick with that, and then people who understand that sometimes their ideology might be a little bit more in conflict with what is constitutionally right.
Yeah, but we're talking about people who don't do either. And again, I go
Right.
back to AOC, Bernie Sanders. I can go to Ilhan
Right,
Omar.
but I'm saying in that perfect world where we look at the people that we got to represent us, sometimes we have to say, okay, somebody's ideologically driven, that's fine. I don't mind it. I have more respect for a communist that's a true believer than I do for a wishy-washy conservative that is only conservative when it's popular. I find, okay, if you have a true belief and you live it, breathe it, and everything else, you know what? I like you. Yeah, I might disagree with you, but I could admire the fact that you're true to your beliefs. I can admire it. Are your beliefs wrong? Yeah. Do I believe they're wrong? Yeah. Are they unconstitutional? Yeah, but you're a true believer. And the fact that you don't change your positions, I can respect that. I can respect that you stick to your guns, and we can actually have a fair, legitimate argument over the points, as opposed to someone who changes their shit Monday through Friday, and you never know which way they stand on something unless the wind is blowing in a certain direction. Those are the people that are dangerous.
Okay. So Here's a question we just got from, and thank you to the audience for providing us with your questions. We'd love to hear what you have to think. And this is coming from Sarah E. Sarah says, so what do we do when we have people who don't even believe in due process? And that's an interesting argument, because
And I have a feeling I know where she's going with that.
I but I know that when we're talking about due process, we're talking about things like, excuse me, the red flag laws, possibly talking about illegal aliens and they're being deported. So it depends on the issue, I think. And I think it depends on, because well, we'd have to say, what are you talking about when you say people who don't believe in due process? The Venezuelan gangs, as an example, illegal aliens, they have no right to be in America. It is due process that these criminals who violated our laws are removed from America. That is part of the law. Enforcing the law says they have to believe. And sending them back to their home country or anywhere else is legal, and that is due process. What's not due process, and I think what most people don't think of, and they should, is red flag laws, where no crime takes place. There's no crime, but someone doesn't like that you own a firearm, and therefore the government has the right to take away your children as well as your property. And anyone who doubts that, I've covered this for years, since 2018. I have hundreds of sources on this. I've talked to Connecticut, which was the first place to have a red flag law in 1999. I've talked to Indiana, New York State, and many representatives in New York State. That's red flag laws have no due process. They are unconstitutional by definition, and yet they exist. And at the same time, we have laws here in the United States which are constitutional, which are effective, that say, yeah, you get to take a criminal from a foreign land, a illegal alien, and deport them, because we don't have to have a trial about that. The left wants it to keep them in our country longer, to try and use the red tape to get them in. We have no requirement for that. So that's one way of looking at it. To clarify, before I let, I figure maybe Dalen will have a question. I know, Frank, you have an opinion where she's going. She did add in, this is not just about immigration, it's about due process, which I did address. I have heard that even American citizens, now you're talking about people's, and this is key. She says, I have heard that even American citizens will not be given due process, quote, our own homegrown criminals. Now we're talking about people's fear mongering. That's fear mongering. You've heard.
All right, well, first,
go ahead.
First, listen. We're going to wrap this up in about 30 seconds because I'm about to pass the hell out. If you've been looking at the private chat, I've been asking you to let's wrap it up for the last 40 minutes because I haven't slept in 28 hours. But it would help if we knew where Sarah was coming from, location-wise, because it almost sounds like she's speaking from another country. I mean, with the way her question is framed. Is Sarah, are you from Canada or something like that?
English doesn't seem to be her native language.
No. It's not that. It's the question itself. I've heard American citizens will not be given the process. I want to know if she's actually an American or questioning our American system. That's what I wanted to know.
I can see that framework as of saying of like even American citizens, because I mean, yeah, saying if it was not it's anything wrong, but saying of like to be a citizen, you would have stated it otherwise of like, our own people versus saying, of like Canadian citizens, if I was referring to another country, or German citizens or European citizens.
Well,
so I see
she has, how is it we to determine if a person is a criminal. We need due process to determine that before taking action. No, due process doesn't, determining if somebody is a criminal is the last step in due process. That's the last step. That's where you are tried and convicted at some point. The due process is a matter of looking at, were crimes committed? Were your rights respected? There's a process that goes through it, and then we finally get down to the verdict. The verdict meaning truth. That's when it's determined whether you're a criminal or not. Until then, you are an alleged criminal. That's part of the due process thing. It's being, innocent until proven guilty, which is not necessarily the case where a lot of people on the left, tend to believe that as far as people who are conservative, if they have nothing to hide, then, if they did nothing wrong, they have nothing to hide. Stuff like that. We believe that due process is a matter of charges are brought based on evidence that was gathered, statements that were made, testimonies are given, evidence is weighed, and a conviction is sought. Either it's a conviction or an exoneration. That's the process. That's due process. What we have a problem with is when politicians in this country seek to avail due process by jumping the gun and saying, we're going to deprive you of your rights prior to the due process being played out. We're going to take from you something, and then you have to prove your innocence. While that's not the case, the government needs to prove guilt before they can take away your freedom, before they can take away your possessions, before they can take away your life. That's due process. There are people within our country who are here right now who do not fall within the structure of constitutional protection because they're not American citizens. They have their own set of due process, being foreign nationals. That doesn't necessarily apply to them the same way that it would apply to me or Michael or Dalen or any other American citizen. It's a different set of circumstances. So that's why in this country, every case is weighed individually.
Yeah. I can see where Sarah's going because she's buying into the fear mongering, and she's listening. It seems, based on what she's saying here, that she's speaking about what she's hearing from the news media, the context of what the news media has reported. And I see the quote of 3 words. I haven't seen the full statement by President Trump yet, so I can't speak to what he said exactly. But what I'm trying to understand is I see the misquote, and we've seen the news media misquote President Trump and other individuals on a regular basis. We've seen them create their own news often, and they've changed the news. They've written the news. As an example, we have Joe Biden, which we now know that for 4 years, the news media protected him, hid the fact that he was mentally not capable of being president. Why do I bring that up? Because at the same time, they were protecting one president and hiding the truth from Americans. And now I have seen in the last 100 days, many stories where they're misrepresenting facts and they're leaving out critical key points of information about what was being said that would change the way the public would absorb it and understand it. So, and Sarah says, but I'm a lawyer. Your title doesn't mean anything, Sarah. Titles saying, I am a lawyer, I am a teacher, I am a whatever. Who cares? No one cares. Just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean you're correct or that you're understanding it correctly. You're depending on the basis of what your evidence is.
Michael Avenatti is a lawyer, and he's in prison.
Yeah, there's half of Congress are almost everybody who's been arrested for fraud as an elected official. Almost all of them are lawyers. What's that supposed to mean? means nothing. It means nothing. That doesn't
Yeah,
change,
their
that doesn't
title
provide
is.
context. I'm sorry, Dalen. I should have let. I'm flying off. It gets
You're good. You're good. Like you said, their title is supposed to be representative. A lot of them are not representing what they say. If the slight touchback of it's the policy of like with Bernie of do as I say, not as I do, of the hypocriteness. But yeah, the title of representative, and they're not really representing
Hey,
how they
I
should.
just remembered. Letitia James is an attorney general and a lawyer, and yet she purposefully broke the law. So who cares? They're saying it's the title doesn't mean anything. That's
The
not
actions, not the title.
Yeah. Saying, but you have to accept my point of view because I'm a lawyer. I am a political commentator for over 20 years. I have experience talking and interviewing individuals, elected officials from the local to the federal level for 20 years. I've done independent research on every issue, including red flag laws and Second Amendment, First Amendment. I've talked at colleges. I've been cited by collegiate scholarly works twice. Does that mean that my opinion is more important than anyone else's? No. But so please, while we respect anyone saying I have this is my understanding or my lack of understanding of an issue, please do me a favor. Don't throw your title. I don't care. I'm as qualified. Each of us on this panel, as qualified, if not more. So titles are meaningless. That's just a way to try and silence someone. I hate that. It's very annoying. So there's that. People, not citizens, get due process. That's not correct. Sarah right now is trying to argue legalities. And by the way, Sarah, it's not. That is a legal dispute in the courts right now. But yeah, citizens get certain protections that non-citizens, illegal aliens, don't get. There is a reason why we have laws. There's a reason why we have a constitution, like every other country in the world.
If the Constitution applied to everybody, then illegal aliens would be allowed to buy guns in my store. They're not. So not every constitutional right is applicable to every person just because you're on U.S. soil. It's not the case. And with that, I'm going to sign us out, everybody, because we're 10 minutes over the limit, 40 minutes beyond my bedtime, and I got to get some sleep. So everybody that joined us this evening, thank you very much. We appreciate you. We love you guys. We hope to see you guys next week again. And like I said, as always, on behalf of Michael Vasquez, Dalen Parker, I'll see you guys next week. And as always, you guys be safe and shoot straight. Chris Jones, thank you, brother. Peace. Be good for you. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.